Well, good morning, everybody. And it's absolutely super to be here. You know, at home they were saying, why are you going to New Zealand? Haven't you worked out it's winter there? And we're having the first summer ever in Ireland. But it is worth it, because the minister says we need to make people excited about numeracy. Well, I hope I can make you a bit excited about numeracy, because I certainly am. But you know, the first thing we have to do is we have to agree what we're talking about. Because depending on our context, when we say the word numeracy, it means different things to different people. And I don't know, in Ireland, our people never get together in our centres and say, they use this word all the time, and they never get together to actually agree what they mean by it. And I mean, it's confused with mathematical literacy and literacy, mathematics and vocational numeracy. Have I read all of them out? And you're there and you're going, well, which one am I talking about? And I think you need to be clear about what you're talking about. So for some, when we have learners that are coming into us and they need help with very basic skills, we're teaching them addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. And we're working very much with number. And initially, that's where the numeracy came from. But as our learners develop, we're then developing other skills, other life skills. And this is one of the ones that really gets me. You go into the supermarket, and there's a huge, big banner in front of you. And it has this tempting sale item on it. And it says, great value this week, our special offer. It's going to be Bold, which is our detergent in Ireland. And it's only if you actually look very carefully that you realize that actually the one that isn't on special offer is actually it's really interesting. And yet we'd be taken in and we need every adult to know when this information is being presented in front of them and when it's actually them trying to tempt them to buy. Now, if I like the big box, because inside in my wardrobe I have this big box, and I have this, this space that just fits it, well, I'm making an informed decision about what I'm actually buying. I'm not buying it because some supermarket person fooled me into thinking that it was actually a good bargain. Many of you working in vocational numeracy, really, really important. We've done a lot of work about unfolding, using mathematical eyes to look at the workplace. And it's interesting, some of the things that we found out. So we were working with this van driver. And you think, I don't know if any of you know the traveling salesman's problem, but his task in the morning, well, he has all of these different parcels to deliver, and he works out in his head the best route to take to make sure that he has the smallest amount of time. That's mathematics. The forklift driver has got to get all of these crates and boxes up on the shelf. In the workplace that we worked with, they called it Tetris, so that in terms of the way that they actually combined it. So there's a huge amount, but it's about making that visible to the learner. But for all of us, we live in this digital world. Have you noticed that we have this huge amount of quantitative information in front of us every single day that we are expected to interpret? And I would just give you a health warning here. Journalists need help with numeracy, because some of the stuff they write is just wrong. They could do, so that's another workplace to consider. Journalists need help with numeracy. But this other one is one that and I used it in 2012. This is from Vodafone. And this is on the Vodafone shop. And they were selling, they said 44,640 minutes in a month. You go, yeah, 31-day month. But there's not that many months with 31 days in it. But again, it's about being able to interpret this world that we're actually living in. So when we go into our numeracy classroom, or we start working with our students in the workplace, whatever kind of workplace that is, what are we trying to do? We're trying to teach our students. We're trying to help them learn. So I'm going to go a little bit academic-y just for 1 minute, and then I'll come out of it again. So there was this wonderful psychologist, Csikszentmihalyi. I've been practicing his name. And he said that if we actually want our students to learn, they have to be in this space, this flow space. And then when they're in this flow space, this is where they get real deep learning. But actually, when you look at how put it together, it actually works better. So if you take on one side, you take challenge, and the other side, you take skill. So when we provide opportunities for our students to learn that are low skill and low challenge, they're, oh, yeah. Okay. When we provide opportunities where we've got a middle kind of skill, they're bored. When we've got a kind of low skill and the challenge level's getting a bit high, we're getting them a little bit anxious. When we've got high skill levels, the challenge is low, they're laid back, they know how to do this, don't have to worry about it anymore. When we've got high challenge and low skill, we get anxiety, no learning. When the skill and the challenge are all right, we're relaxed, we're okay, we're handling ourselves. But if you want them to get aroused, you have to match the challenge level, start matching their skill and challenge level. And where you really get this really deep learning is in this flow space. So what does that mean? That means that we have to be prepared to push our learners out of their comfort zone to enable them to learn. And one of the things that in Ireland, especially when I'm working with the literacy and numeracy tutors in Ireland, many of the literacy and numeracy tutors in one particular group came in as volunteer tutors. They wanted to help, and they wanted to help these learners. And they find it sometimes very difficult to push, to say, right, they want to actually to make this push to actually help that learning happening. And in a way, they're not helping their learners to develop as much as they can. So when we're in the classroom, when we're thinking, we need to make sure that what we're putting in front of our numeracy students is actually just pushing them enough to encourage that learning. And the thing is, one size doesn't fit all. And for each student, it's different. So no pressure then, eh? And the consequences of us getting this wrong are huge. The research has proved that these cycles. So if you get a cycle of failure, you get negative attitudes about mathematics, you get an avoidance of mathematics, which is failure in mathematics. Now remember, a lot of our learners are coming to us often as second chance learners. The system, whatever it was, has actually let them down once already. We have to make sure we get it right. Because when we get success, we get positive attitudes, they get more effort. So the more positive experiences they have, the more they're going to actually try, the more that they'll actually start to enjoy and see mathematics. So what comes into your classroom or comes into your workplace is this numeracy learner. And they have a whole batch of life experience. Depending on their age, they could have huge life experience. They're different culture, different personal social development. They have different levels of communication skills, attitudes and beliefs, different things that motivate them. They're complex. They're not the same. They're very complex. And the job that you do as a numeracy tutor is a complex job. If your job is to excite all of these students and make them love numeracy and love mathematics like they should, it's a complex job. And it's coupled with the fact that even their mathematics, it's totally invisible to them. Because when they think about mathematics, they think about school mathematics. They think about sitting in the classroom. It ignites anxieties. For a lot of students, it does. And what they do every day in their lives, it's common sense. That's what Diana's researched. But what if we could make the mathematics visible to them? Now, I know I've been working with the Literacy and Numeracy Network over the last few months, and I apologize, but I think everybody should hear about Maths Eyes. So I think you should actually help them to develop Maths Eyes. See the mathematics that they use every day. You as tutors need to develop Maths Eyes, because you've got to find starting points that are relevant to each one of this very diverse group of learners that you have, so that the mathematics you're doing with them, the numeracy you're doing them, will actually make sense to them. They'll actually see a point in engaging and being motivated to do something. And if you get Maths Eyes, you challenge this concept that I'm not a maths person. And you actually say, well, and you build confidence in mathematics, and in particular in the usefulness of mathematics. And you shift that view of mathematics out of the schoolroom and back into their real world. So how do we develop Maths Eyes? Galileo, he had thought of this long before we did. I'll just give you a minute to read it. So I would believe that every single New Zealander must be brilliant at algebra. Am I right? Okay. This is one of the posters that we used in a community event called Looking at Tala Through Maths Eyes that we did in 2011. GAA is the Irish national sport. But what we were trying to do was to get people to think about mathematics outside the classroom. And we did work, and we taught algebra using GAA or rugby scores. Absolutely no problem. People have a view in their head that algebra is about X and Y. Why can't it be about T for try and C for conversions and scores? There's no reason. It's just about finding the starting point. But by saying, you're actually not just doing scoring, you're actually doing linear algebra. You've already got them engaged and motivated. One of the other posters we used was this one. At the time, we had a bit of a problem in Ireland. And the word billions in debt actually was all over the paper. But nobody knew how big a billion was. So we got them all to count. 1, 2, 3. And we said, okay, how long would we be counting? Well, for about 1,000 seconds, you're talking about 16 minutes. For 1 million, you're talking about 11 days. For 1 billion, 31 and a half years. So we're in deep trouble. But has anybody noticed that the USA is now talking in trillions? They're in serious trouble. 32,500 years. That's how far you have to count to actually get up there. So I'm glad we only have the billions to deal with in Ireland. And the other thing about Maths Eyes is that it works best if it's things that are familiar to the people. So on this particular session that we did, we actually had, the shopping centre was known as the Square. It's circular. You walk in around the shopping centre in a circle. So we put this up on the side of there wasn't too many crashes. We had these up like big election posters up around the village. So it's not a square. Tallaght Square is not a square. And they said, what do you mean it's not a square? Of course it's a square. No, the land must be square. No, we checked, it's not. No, we checked it. It actually was on a big rectangular site. But there was a square kind of theme going on. There's a bloody big pyramid up the middle of it. And, but there was, all of the tiles were square. All of the car parking wires were actually square. There was a slight square theme. But what it actually got them to actually look at their centre in a different way. And that's what you're trying to do. You just kind of take them out and look at familiar things in a different way. Yeah. See when you develop maths eyes the first time, biggest problem you have is that you can only see numbers. First competition we ran in Ireland nationally, I think about 98% of the entries must have been how many's. So we changed that, said no. What you have to do is to think about the different lenses. So if you're starting something with your tutors or with your students, and you want to say to them, okay, let's work a number. Let's look at this familiar thing on number. Now, could we work out the number of hay bales that we should have stopped that? Right? Or yes, it's a grand starting place if that's what you want to study. But you need to realize, you need to look at the other lenses. What if I looked at a picture through shape and space? Would I see different things? What if I looked at it through patterns and relationships? Would I see different things? What if I looked at it through problem solving? What could I think up? So you have to encourage them to start thinking about what kinds of things they could actually ask their students or get you have to think about what kind of things to get your students to do. And the students really get engaged with this. Believe me, they absolutely love it. They think it's not maths at all, and they are learning so much maths. I just thought I'd show you some of the ones that came in. So we run, now Maths Eyes, just to tell you a little bit about it. Maths Eyes I actually developed it as part of my doctoral thesis for actually helping tutors in terms of their professional development. I'm saying, for a lot of your students, you may not come from the same background. You mightn't understand, so you've got to get your Maths Eyes, and you've got to actually find starting points that make meaning to your students. And that was where the Maths Eyes actually came from. Little did I know that it was going to expand considerably. So we run a national competition on Maths Eyes. This is the under 7 entry. And it's taken off now. We had just under 1,000 entries this year. We've now gone to Austria, where once we're up in Waikato next week, where we have a maths trail that's actually going to be launched there. We have it's in Australia, it's in Austria, Germany, Scotland, England. And what's interesting, in Sweden, they're actually using it particularly for vocational mathematics. And what they're doing is they're asking their students to actually take pictures of work of when they think they're doing mathematics. And then they're talking. So what they're then doing is talking about their work, their context, and explaining their mathematics to them. And apparently my hair, I am now one of the most famous people in New Zealand because they play my little video. In Sweden, sorry. Sorry, well, I will be in New Zealand as well, because they play this video, and my hair, apparently, this is what I was told the other day, so I said, that's great. But let's have a look at some of the stuff. These are the ones for the under 7s. Now, Maths Eyes works with children right up to adults, which is really, really good. Pay close attention, because there's an audience participation bit at the end of this. One of the things that we encourage a lot is to actually integrate the Maths Eyes with using some of the free software. Are you familiar with GeoGebra? GeoGebra is a free software, and that's what they've used to do some of this stuff. And I have a website called haveyougotmathseyes.com, and all of the software, all of the training, everything you need for using GeoGebra is actually on that. Somebody went to a lot of trouble with candles. This is somebody's bathroom. This is one of the adult ones. You got it? The other thing about it is that maths eyes can be used when you start off. Most people look at shape and numbers at quite a basic level. But you can actually develop it, and you can actually do quite complicated and introduce quite complicated mathematics. So you can actually move with your learners in terms of their maths eyes. These are some of the adult ones that came in. Do you remember axial symmetry from school when you're drawing your lines down? We got it? 235Y? Colors of the... We sent this, we were working with Ken, and we sent this as part of a set out to our school in Kenya that we were working with, and they sent back their own one because they said that they didn't have blonde hair and they didn't have any need for curlers. So was it okay if they made their own one? Are you getting the idea? All right, we'll put it to the test. Okay, so when we were working on the maths trail, we were looking at some pictures. And this is one of the pictures on the maths trail from the university campus. And what I want you to do is in your groups, I want you to think up a tagline we could use with this on the maths trail. I told you there was an audience participation part. Okay? Just have a look, just 2 or 3 minutes, just see if you can come up any tagline at all. And think through your lenses. Think through your lenses. You have to contribute too. I'm going to ask you first. Don't worry about it. Get the idea first, and then there's so much potential, and that's just one. But imagine if you were teaching, and you wanted to talk about, we're going to talk about shape today, or instead you wanted to talk about alternate angles. So you could use this for a number of different things to actually introduce this topic. How are you doing? Oh, it takes a while to get your head into it. It's pretty though, isn't it? Yeah. How are you doing over there? Perfect. How are you doing? Lots of thinking. Okay, one minute. Are you all right? 1 minute. And it's taking brilliant taglines from this table. Yeah, the ice is good. Okay. Don't tell me you don't have one. Have you got one? Oh, brilliant, okay. Okay, let's see how well you've done. We'll start with this table here. Could we have the mic, please, if that's okay? Yeah. Okay, what they're saying is mirror image. That's a good one. Yeah, that's a good one. What about you?
Ours is similar. Ours was where's the symmetry?
Where's the symmetry? Brilliant. Okay. Have you got one?
I've got a few, but one,
Squares
squares are in, triangles are out.
are in, triangles are out. Absolutely super. Yeah. What about over here?
How many squares?
Brand, how many squares is the tagline? Because you have squares within squares, which is quite good, yeah. What about down here? Oh, I like that. Say it again. Yeah, yeah. In the square. Yeah, okay. And what about back here? Okay. And G? Okay. Math size, square eyes. All right. Have you got one here? Okay. Diamonds are a girl's best friends. How many friends has she got? I like it. Maybe we should use that one.
Yeah.
What about you? Absolutely, yeah. Peaks and troughs. What about the back end? Is there any brilliant ones over here? Well, the whole idea is that actually to get a tagline, so when you're working, work with your students to get some taglines. And try and not direct them down the school maths problem route. This is meant to be fun, right? So fun means they should be able to do it by looking at it. This isn't about getting the right answer. This is about talking how you would get the right answer or how you'd go about it. There are many right answers to all of these. Once I had a maths trail, and the teacher arrived with all the children with their rulers and their pencils, their calculators, and their copybooks. I nearly freaked. So I banned them all and said, at one stage, I actually found one child measuring a seat to 4 decimal places with a wooden ruler. It just is meaningless, right? So don't replicate that. These are things to start having conversations. How might we do it? You'll hear that your learners come up with all different kinds of ideas about how they go about things. You can then, what the message you're sending then is, different strategies are fine. And maths doesn't always just have the one single answer. And I don't think we do half enough talking about the mathematics. We kind of start with the doing rather than having time for the talking. And it's hard, right? It makes your job as a numeracy tutor hard. So that's why the next part, I'm going to actually go back to what I should be talking about. Well, what do you need to be a great numeracy tutor? And one of the things I suppose that we have to realize is that there's loads of, why are we looking at numeracy tutors separate than teaching? There's loads of information out there about teaching excellence and everything. I think one of the things we have to do is we have to be aware of the kinds of learners that we predominantly deal with. They're not children. They're not high flyers. They're adults that are having, for a lot of the time, are having second chance, and we have to make sure that that's a good experience. And the other thing is that, you know, these are the learners that will actually lose out in this digital world. It's moving so fast. So what we're doing, because it's moving so fast, it's making our job, we kind of have to keep up with it. So I think a great numeracy tutor will have to realize that when they're talking about numeracy, just like we talked about this morning, it's just not one thing. It's about this person in front of you, their real life, helping them to respond to mathematics-containing situations in a way that they're confident to be able to do it, whether it's in their life, whether in their daily life, or in their work. And if we have that very narrow definition of numeracy, if we keep our definition of numeracy down around it, well, it's very basic, that's all we're talking about. That's all the ideas you're going to have is going to be around in that space. And you're doing your learners a disservice, because the PIAC results, the way that the PIAC work is a big definition of numeracy. It's a big, big definition of numeracy, not a small definition. So we need to just be careful that we think about ourselves, what kind of way we think about numeracy. You must have maths eyes, but you also have to know mathematics. In order for you to be a successful numeracy teacher, you need to know mathematics. And one of the areas that I'm quite keen on at the moment, so I view it as having maths eyes. So we have our maths eyes to see physically, but this is about seeing intellectually. And it's about seeing the connections that can be made in mathematics to help learners understand mathematical concepts. And this whole idea of the big ideas in mathematics was introduced by Brunner. And a statement that is central to learning, one that links numerous mathematicals into a coherent whole. And it's true, we do understand things better if we see how they're connected. And the degree of understanding is determined by the number and strength of the connection. So if we keep thinking of delivering individual little bits, and then they know that bit now, and we'll move on to the next bit, and they know that bit. And if we don't help them to build that connection between all of them, then we're not really getting that deep understanding that we want our learners to have. You have to be able to communicate. Very interesting. I've just done an awful lot of work with the higher education lecturers. They don't think they have to communicate. I couldn't believe it. And I said, I don't know, do you know David Putnam? He got the Oscar for Chariots of Fire. He was the director of Chariots of Fire. Well, I had the pleasure of David Putnam being on my board for the last 3 years. And David said, he said, they have to be able to communicate. And I said, of course they do. And he said, people keep asking me what I'm doing in education. What do I know about education, because I'm a filmmaker? And I said, how did you respond? Well, he said, making a film's about communicating. And isn't that what they're meant to be doing? So you do need to be able to communicate. And I mean to communicate in lots of different ways. There's a certain form of communication around technology now. There are written communications, or it's to think about all the different ways you need to communicate. This is another one, higher education lecturers don't think they need to think about being themselves or what they're bringing to the classroom. I thought it was hilarious. I suppose because I come from the further education from the adult side, to actually now be in higher education and to actually, and they said, well, we think this part should be removed from the professional development framework. And I went, what? So I said, so if you believe, for example, that people are good or not good at maths, when you walk into your classroom, you've already filtered your group. And if you don't think about those kind of things, and if you don't address them, and you don't deal with them, then you're not doing your students any service. And I mean, I believe that if a student comes, whatever they come, whether they come to workplace numeracy programs, whether they come to literacy and numeracy programs, whether they come into higher education, we have a responsibility to help them to be as good as they can be. And that means we've got to be on the top of our game. The other thing is about, did you hear about that fella called the system? Yeah? The system. I can't do that because the system doesn't let me do it. I'm only here just to teach. Shut my door. We can't. As numeracy tutors, we have to be aware of what's happening in the broader context. And we have to realize when the system gets it wrong, and we have to have a voice. We can't just do the teaching and hope that all that other bit is actually just going to be all right. Because it does impact what we do in the classroom, if we let it. So we have to have our voice. That's the lecture over now. So you've got to be proficient with technology. Now, I was really delighted when the minister gave the results for PIAC today, because I said this isn't going to be a problem. How many of you, because I know you're tutors, literacy and work and numeracy, how many of you actually actively use technology all the time in your teaching? Okay, all right. But we have first in the world in terms of digital competence, so there shouldn't be any problem about introducing it. And I'll tell you what we've been doing some work, and what we've actually found is that if tutors are confident themselves in their using technology, if they feel that they're comfortable about the technology, then they're much more likely to actually introduce it into the classroom. But it's the fear that it actually is not going to work in the classroom holds them back. So if you've got very confident tutors and you've got them, they'll actually say, okay, well, all right, I'll try it. I'm willing to try it. Without that confidence, they won't. So all of you have got to build your own digital literacy. If you don't think that your digital literacy is enough to give you that confidence to use it in the classroom. And let me show you what we did in Ireland. And the reason I'm showing it to you is that everything I'm going to show you is actually available in open access, so that it can be used or interpreted. So in Ireland, we had this problem, so we said, we're going to raise the digital literacy of our students and our tutors. And we funded, my forum funded a project called All Aboard. And what All Aboard did was it went around the country, and it actually picked up all of the different digital skills. It had these sessions in all of the universities and all of the centres, and it says, what kind of digital skills have we actually got? What kind of things are we talking about? And they put them all together. As you can see, there was a number of them. And they said, well, we need to get some order and structure on these. So they stuck it, and they went, oh, still, that's not enough. We need to do something else. Right? What we now have is an accessible digital framework, because most people recognize what this is. But each of those lines is a different line. So you've got the black line is identity and well-being. The mustard line is create and innovate. The purple line is find and use. The tools and technologies are the silver line, and the teach and learn is the blue. And if you actually, they come out, should come out, yeah. So each one of these is actually described. Now, what's even more interesting is that for each station, by the end of this year, we will have student materials online, and we will have tutor materials online that are free for everybody to use, adapt. You can download the whole package if you have a learning system, or you can any system, electronic system within your your institution. And as I say, I just think that when we were setting this up, we reviewed 60 different digital skills frameworks. And they said, well, why did you develop another one? And let me tell you, this is the only one that people can understand. Have you read some of them? Totally incomprehensible. But this, parents will understand. This, students will understand. This, tutors will understand. And what's more, we've developed a way of getting around. So you're able to do a little assessment test, and you get this little, up here, the all aboard, you get the little diagram here. And then you can get a student card. So just like you'd buy a card for a child on the tram, or you buy a card for an adult, you don't have to buy them, they're available, but you can make your own card. And all of it is badged. So the first one that the students wanted was understanding your smartphone. Isn't that interesting? They didn't want, they said, I know I can press all the buttons, but I don't know how it works. And it's the how it works is what this deals with. So you can get more advanced. You've got tutors and lecturers. There's a whole pile, different student cards depending on what you want. If anybody is interested in it, I'm here for the next 2 days. And if they'd like to talk about it, and we can certainly follow up. I have my contact details at the end of the presentation. And if you want to follow up on it, and you want particular cards and how it all works, just let me know. But I think it's a huge resource that's there for everybody to use. Okay, but if it's grand having that resource, then what are you going to do with it, right? How do you actually effectively use technology and other tools in the classroom? How do you really teach mathematics? And if you're a great numeracy tutor, has every kind of technique up. And I'm not saying technology is the answer. I think we do a huge amount of really good learning and teaching with our students without technology. So it's not about getting rid of what we do great, but it's about using technology to enhance when it's appropriate and to give new opportunities. That's what it does, to do things that we couldn't do before. That's what it enables us to do. But you need to keep abreast of all the teaching techniques and what might work. Try them out. And that goes on to this bit, the trying out bit. There's a lot of anecdotal evidence about what works and what doesn't work in numeracy teaching. And I think you need to make sure that you actually think about, so when you try something, think about, why did that work? And the other thing is, are my learners really learning? I'm there teaching, but how many of us actually stop and measure and take the time to measure the impact? And the last one, you must demonstrate a commitment to lifelong learning. Our world is moving too fast to say I'm going to do one lot of PD and then I'm going to be finished. Your professional development should be constant. And to be honest with you, excellent tutors are made, not born. They become excellent through investment in their teaching abilities. And one of the best ways, I think, that you can get some professional development that's really meaningful is in situations like the next 2 days. You're going to learn a lot from the presentations and from the papers, but you're going to learn an awful lot more from each other chatting over the coffee. Right, enjoy the next 2 days. Thank you very much.